Parent series brought to you by the Rhode Island Prevention Coalition. We're really grateful for them. They are very amazing at helping families in all sorts of areas, so thank you very much. For those of you who were here for the first time, we're going to continue our conversation. If you were not here for the first time, Chris, our practice manager, she has the packets from last time, and I'm sure we can get you the video as well. But we are really excited to have you. The McNeill Children's Institute is a pediatric occupational therapy clinic. We are located in Middletown. We have a Rumford office, and right now we're building a North Kingstown office. So we're very excited about that. We serve kids birth to 22. Basically in any area kids are having difficulty with, underlying school, socialization, sports, and communication with others, like out in the community. Okay, so the first portion of this is going to be a tag on from last week. We are going to have our very own Tayla Hannigan, our OT supervisor, present the alert program and that sensory processing piece. And then I will come back out and we will be talking about tips and tricks for things at home like self-care, bathing, dressing, toileting, all of those fun things that we want our kids to do. So here I am. Welcome, Tayla Hannigan. Come on out.
Hi, everyone. Woo. So I'm Tayla. For a little bit about myself, I've worked in pediatrics for about 6 years now. I started working at a school about 6 years ago as an occupational therapy assistant. So I worked in an elementary school and a middle school, so ages from like 3 to 12. And then once I graduated grad school, I started working as the OT supervisor at McNeill's. And they are very similar. When treating kids in both the school and outpatient, I think outpatient has a little more flexibility, which I love. You can work on a lot more. And one thing that I used to work on in the schools all the time was something called the alert program, which also works on like engine speeds and helping regulate kids within the classroom. So I would teach the full classrooms and the teachers how to use this program, and then I took it with me to the clinic, and now I teach families how to use it and teach the kids how to self-regulate, and they can use that within their home. Oh, you can go like 2 slides over, sorry. And, oh, thank you. So what is the alert program? The alert program was created by 2 occupational therapists, Mary Sue Williams and Sherry Schellenberger. What it does is it compares our bodies to engines in order to describe the levels of alertness in children. The great thing about this program is that it builds awareness in children to help them understand the different arousal states in their body and gives them the ability to maintain and control their level of arousal and alertness based on their emotions, their physical behaviors, so they can resume their everyday routines, such as getting ready for school in the morning, having to get dressed, eat breakfast, and get everything done before they have to go to school. So one thing that the engine speed is kind of based on is the state of arousal level. So they're comparing the arousal levels to engine speeds. So what is a child's state of arousal? This is the state of your child's nervous system, which is affected by either by emotions, response to the environment, sensory integration, or behaviors. Learning how to self-regulate is important for children to learn in order to identify their emotions and utilize appropriate strategies to reach the optimal level of arousal, or as the alert program calls it, the just right engine speed. So everyone should have got one of these in their packet, which is what I like to call a speedometer. You can call it whatever you want, but that's usually what I call it with the kids when I make them with them. So on here, the colors, this one has a turtle and like a car just regularly driving and a fast car. Typically, you will also see that low engine speed will be blue, and then just right is green, and then high is red. So that kind of language you can kind of use with your kids, that you're in the blue, or you're in the green, or you're in the red. Another thing that you can do with these is you can make them at home with your kids using a half of a paper plate, one of these push pins, and just crayons to color each section of the speedometer. So blue is always low, green is just right, and red is too fast. And they're great at assisting kids that, like, just in the moment they can just move this instead of using their words, because as we know, if kids are in the high zone, they might not be able to verbally tell you, but they can use this to tell you which engine speed they're in. So what is the just right engine speed? Sometimes our bodies do not have enough fuel to complete tasks to the best of our abilities, and other times we have a heavy foot and our bodies are running too fast to concentrate or complete daily tasks. For example, kids might have too much energy or too little energy to complete their nighttime routine before they're going to bed, and they might not be able to get things done like everyday tasks, getting dressed, brushing their teeth, all of those things. The just right engine speed is the speed your body should be when you are ready to learn and complete daily tasks. Your brain and body should be calm, focused, alert, and oriented. You are ready to learn or complete tasks and not easily distracted. So this is the optimal level of arousal. So low engine speed. So these are just some examples of sensory responses of what a kiddo will look like if they have a low engine speed in emotions. So if they're understimulated, they're laying around instead of completing daily tasks, they'll probably be procrastinating, leaning on household objects and people, completing daily tasks slower than like on a typical day, or finishing half the task and then easily becoming distracted. Usually these emotions are related to being tired, sick, bored, zoned out, fatigued, stressed, or sad. So strategies to get to just right from low. So to wake your body, typically you want to engage in vestibular input activities. So vestibular input, it stimulates your body and brain while increasing the ability to process new information, and that typically includes jumping, spinning, dancing, swinging, twisting. You want to move your head around space. Rocking in a chair, bouncing on a therapy ball, bike riding, hopscotch, and jumping jacks. Those are just kind of some examples to do at home to wake up your body. Other simple exercises to alert your brain: going for a walk, drinking water, crab walks, loud music, playing Simon Says, and playing catch with the weighted ball. We also put these visuals in your packet. These are great ways to wake your body to use for your kiddos. If they are in a low engine speed, they can kind of go and look and point at what activity they want to do to get themselves back to just right. And now for the high engine speed is obviously the opposite from the low. So usually they'll be hyper, jumping around, bouncing, maybe jumping from furniture to furniture, just acting really silly and not being able to focus enough to get a task done. Or it could be on more of the behavior side, like yelling, screaming, stomping, hitting, or becoming aggressive, throwing belongings, difficulty attaining attention to task, and forgetting to complete steps of a task is, again, getting distracted. Emotions related to this level of engine speed might be feeling anxious, overwhelmed, overly excited, feeling silly, easily distracted, and restlessness. So strategies to get to just right from the high engine speed: proprioceptive input based activities will relax and calm your body. Proprioceptive input is sensations from your joints that underlie body awareness. So anything that's going to put pressure on your joints. So heavy work activities like bear walks, wall push-ups. At home, to make it more functional, you could take out the trash, carry heavy objects, washing tables and windows, sweeping, doing joint compressions, which I think we will go over in a little bit, using weighted vests, blankets, lap pads, squeezes, hugs, or even you can get creative and use things around your house to do like an obstacle course for kids to make it more motivating. Weighted ball activities, including catch and bowling. Some other ways to calm your body would be stretching, yoga poses, breathing exercises, calm music, or dimming the lights. So a big thing about when kids are in the high engine speed is kind of making the environment calmer so that the kids are calmer as well. So turning down the lights, taking off any extra things you have on the wall can get very distracting. If you have the TV on in the other room, maybe limiting the noise that's going on, so turning off the TV, things like that. And again, in your folders, there are also visuals, ways to give pressure to your body and ways to relax your body. Both of these are good tools to use for when kids are in the high engine speed. So here are just some examples of some fun breathing exercises. I find that having a visual guide helps kids focus on their breathing more. So these examples are just some fun shapes that promote breathing. And usually you can just kind of, I think there is an example in your folder. You can also always Google like starfish breathing, rainbow breathing, and things like that. And that kind of just gives a guide of when to breathe in and when to breathe out. So here are just some easy steps on how to teach your child the engine speeds within your home environment. So the first thing you want to do is introduce the engine words with the use of visuals. So with whatever you decide to make with your child, just kind of introduce and tell them which one is the low and which one's the high and the just right. You want to demonstrate by labeling your own engine levels. So maybe if you are feeling really tired one day and you're getting ready, you can kind of use that as an example to show them, like, look, I'm in the low engine speed. I'm going to go get a drink of water to wake myself up, just as an example. And then the third thing, your child develops awareness of the feeling of their own engine speed using your labels as guides. And then your child learns to identify the label levels for themselves utilizing the visual supports, which would be this. And then you want to teach the self-regulation techniques with the engine speeds. So you introduce different sensory motor methods to change engine levels that work best for your child and your family. Obviously, it's all, you want to make it motivation-based. So like if they do like doing obstacle course, maybe that might be something that they like to do. Or if they like squeezes, maybe taking couch cushions or something to give them a squeeze would be more motivational. Make a visual list of choices with the child of strategies to utilize when their speed is too low or too high. And implement the engine speeds and model when your child becomes dysregulated to promote self-regulation. So visuals are another great support to use at home to assist with self-regulation, and these can also work hand in hand with the engine speeds. Visuals are great to use at home, and you can take them in the car, use them out in the community. They can be used in the form of communication, personalized schedules, and or behavior supports. So on there, that is an example of a visual schedule. So reasons to use visuals within your home. So visuals are permanent while spoken words disappear. So that means that they can be often referred back to. Visuals allow time for language processing. And visuals prepare for transitions, such as utilizing a first and that's up on the screen. It helps kids prepare for what's coming next. So especially if a kiddo doesn't want to brush their teeth, having a visual support that says first brush your teeth and then you can go on the tablet, for instance. That's usually motivating because then they know what's next. And then visuals help kids see what you mean. And continued, visuals help build independence. If they have a schedule of things that they have to do in the morning, for instance, they can just keep independently going back and looking at the pictures to see what they need to do next. Visuals are transferable between environments and people, and visuals have no attitude, tone, frustration, or disapproval. Kids can read our emotions really well, so when we are feeling frustrated because they are not responding to what we are asking them to do, visuals are great because you can just point to the picture rather than needing to verbally keep repeating yourself. And typically, if a kid is very dysregulated and, for instance, in the high engine speed, it's going to take more for them to process what you're actually saying to them over and over again. So having that visual support there is more beneficial than you having to say the same thing, because that might actually just dysregulate them more. And last, visuals help reduce anxiety and prepare kids for what is coming next. So I think Sarah's going to come back out. It's not the...
Listen, Linda. You're not about to crack your hands in. I'm telling you. I'll fight kids. I don't hear it. Listen.
Okay, what?
Everything that you were at this house, you can't touch everything at Grandma's house.
Okay,
Okay, then what?
then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me. My job is to go get money, and my boss give me some. And I drive all the way to Chuck E. Cheese, and I take you guys.
Oh, you're gonna take us to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. I want to hear what you're saying. I don't want to hear it. Well, I didn't want to hear it first. I don't want to hear it. So why don't you still talk? Always been talking. You're talking.
I asked you not to do something.
Linda, but listen to me. Look at, if we do something, if you get that out, that bird thing off, you're gonna break it.
Okay, but I'm letting you know
But
that you cannot. No, I'm.
Lick it.
You're not listening to me.
The only reason I'm talking is because you're talking. I'm gonna drive.
Oh, you're gonna drive.
Yeah.
You're gonna take us there?
Yeah.
Okay. You know the way?
Yeah. I go left and right. I'm not. We've been going at it since this morning. I'm not gonna keep this. Stop clapping your hands at me. And you gonna keep clapping. Stop.
Listen to me now. Listen to me now.
Listen to me.
No, you're not listening. I said no cupcakes. And you try to get cupcakes and you try to ask Grandma.
Linda,
Didn't you?
Linda, lick it.
But this is after you're gonna listen to Mommy and what Mommy asked you to do, right?
I'm gonna drive for my ride right now.
You and Kevin don't listen. So I have to give both of you guys pop-pows in your butt.
But Linda, Grandpa's gonna give me peppers in the butt.
No, he's not.
Yeah. I know you better stop talking to me. And you're gonna do it again, huh? But Linda, honey, look at this. Right now, they can't do anything if we can't get everything out of the wall. If we're gonna break everything down.
I'm not breaking anything down. I'm just letting you know
Linda,
you cannot have cupcakes for dinner.
Linda. We've been arguing since this morning. We were arguing for 12 hours. Why did you wait? You got school tomorrow.
I'm done arguing with you.
I'm not arguing with you.
You need to listen to the things that I say because I'm the mom and I'm the adult.
Linda, listen to me.
I'm done arguing with you.
Linda, I'm done arguing with you.
I love that video. You know, it's so funny because the smarter your kid is, the more they bargain and they try to get you to break down. And a lot of times when they're doing this, we've had a long day, you know, we don't want to deal with this. So we've got the anger coming up into our necks and we just want to kill them. Even though that's adorable, we are living this, and that is an easy example of what we're talking about here, okay? We're watching someone bargaining with their parent about getting a cupcake, right? Well, I'm going to teach you a little bit better of a way so that you're not going back and forth for like 20, 30, 40 minutes, and you're so annoyed by the time you're done that you just can't see straight, and you give the kid a cupcake. You're like, can you just take the cupcake and go away with your tablet for a minute? You know? So we're going to review last week a little bit just to give you a little heads up. So self-regulation and sensory processing are a person's ability to control his emotional, physical, mental state with sensory input coming in to the situation. Sensory regulation starts at birth, lasts a lifetime. So all of us adults, if you think about what you do when you're sitting there right now, thinking of other things, chewing on a pen, you know, tapping your foot, all of those things are somewhat appropriate sensory strategies. Children, on the other hand, they need those strategies to attend all of the tasks at school, making friends, maintaining friends. They need to utilize those skills, but when there's a lot of input coming in, they're either overstimulated or they're understimulated. It's very rare that someone enters a meeting or enters school and they're in the perfect place, you know. Some mornings, but typically not, you know. So when we're in a situation where, you know, drinking things, biting our nails, we use weighted blankets, I use essential oils. We talk to our friend, we're leaving work, we're so irritated, we're going on the phone, we're like, you know, venting to our friend, they make us feel better. That person is self-regulating us, okay? So children use adults to self-regulate. They lean on you, they cuddle on you, they have these bargaining conversations to try to regulate themselves, okay? When you look at a child and how they're regulating, they typically have inappropriate strategies. Why? Because they haven't been taught them. They're just going from whatever their body feels like. My body feels bad, so I'm going to crash into the wall. It does help, but is it appropriate? No. So we see a lot of biting, hitting, touching everything, smelling items, licking items, tantrums, leaning on people or objects. A lot of parents say, oh, my kid is so cuddly. Well, they're utilizing you to self-regulate. You know, we have a lot of picky eating, jumping, climbing, difficulty sitting at meal times. We'll talk about some of that when we're in the eating portion of this. How to get kids to sit there for a long enough time. Sensory dysfunction interferes with anybody, child, adult, ability to get to their potential, okay? It creates difficulty at school, you know, sitting, paying attention, things like that. It causes difficulty in sports. You know, my kid was always the one in the back picking the daisies. You know, that person is not self-regulated. They're not in the game. Making friends, maintaining friends. They may make friends, but if someone is dysregulated, they're in your bubble, they're in the kid's face, they may not want to go back for a second round, okay? So that's kind of our just quick synopsis of last time. If you did not come to the first one and you want information about that, let us know. We'll take care of that for you. I want to hit on something really quick called behavior management. So once we've got our sensory bucket filled, okay, we're going to the store. We know that's where our kid has meltdowns. Before we go to the store, we're doing our sit-ups, our wall push-ups. We're explaining to them, when you go in the store, you are to follow Rule 1, stay with mom. Rule 2, ask to touch things, okay? So we're giving them very simplistic directions. At the same time, we are also giving them that sensory input. Now, when you're in the car on the way to the store, when you get there, you can do some self-regulation in the car before you walk in. repeat those directions. Repeating directions helps children remember what they're supposed to do when they're in a dysregulated state, okay? What you want to do is create this understanding of what to do in a store and how to behave. Once you've given them the sensory input, you've given them the information, if they're in the store and they're misbehaving, that's when we need to go to behavior management, okay? We filled up their sensory bucket, okay? Now it's just, them being a jerk. So basically, when you're doing behavior, okay, whatever attention you bring to the child, that behavior is going to increase. So if you have a child, you're going to do positive reinforcement the second they be quiet. So if your kid is screaming, "I want a cupcake," just going ballistic, you find that one moment in time where they're quiet, even if it's because they couldn't breathe anymore. And you go, "Oh my gosh, thank you for being quiet." The second you say that, they start screaming again. But you gave them attention for the positive behavior. That 1 second they were quiet, and they heard you say, "Good job making a good choice, you were quiet." Okay? Then they're crying again. You ignore that crying behavior, and then every time you hear a moment of silence, you say the same thing over again, okay? So you want to just catch those little moments of being good, okay? Someone refuses to brush their teeth, okay? If they pick up the toothbrush, good job making a good choice toward brushing your teeth. You want to find the littlest, most tiniest thing to focus on that's positive, okay? Ignore the negative. When that anger is coming up your chest into your throat, okay, you need to separate yourself from the situation, okay? So what do? I go, okay, I'm going to the restroom, I lock the door, I go to my personal room, I lock the door. You know your child's in a safe situation. They may be banging down the door, but you as a parent, you as a caregiver need to take a minute to calm yourself down so that you can deal with the situation appropriately, okay? Natural consequences, okay? If your child is jumping on the couch and you've said, "Please don't jump on the couch, you're gonna get hurt," okay? Sometimes, unfortunately, the natural consequence is what helps them to make a decision not to do that the next time. Natural consequences, I think a lot of us parents, we try to make life a little easier for our child, okay? We don't want to see them fail. But the fact of the matter is, you have a certain amount of time when you can allow your kid to fail and you still can pick them up. Once they get, in those teenage years or a little bit above, you don't have the control that you have now. And it's really important to let them fall as far as they can while you have that control. Use visuals, okay? If you don't have an OT and you're not coming to therapy at this point, you can find visuals on Etsy, Amazon, you name it, you can find it. If you're wanting visuals for, say, toothbrushing, put in brushing teeth visuals. They will send them right to your door laminated. Because you want to have as much visuals in the house as possible, in the car, everywhere you go, so that you can point to those pictures and take yourself out of that equation. When you take yourself out, they're talking to a visual, okay? When they're talking to a visual, the visual only tells them one thing. It's not repeating the directions over and over, okay? So when you're working through a tantrum, you really don't want to say much, but when you do say something, use no more than 4 to 5 words. Did you see in that video they were bargaining, they were talking, they were going back and forth? You do not want to allow your child to get into that position where they can bargain with you, because really no one wins, because both of you are very exhausted by the end of that conversation. Okay, so you need to make a plan, This weekend, my husband and I had to sit down and make a plan. Why did we need to make a plan? Because the plan that we had previous didn't work anymore. Our children are a little bit older. We sit down every couple months and we make a plan so that when we're in the heat of the moment with our child, we already know the decision that we've both come to make. So, okay, we're going to ignore that behavior. We both know that when they drop to the ground, we're walking away. So there's no riff in between my husband and I because we've made those decisions beforehand. It's really important that you are not making decisions last minute in the heat of the moment. So for instance, what time do they get on technology? What are the activities that you want them to complete within a day? If those activities are not completed, then they do not get their technology. If both of you know that, then there's no fight because one person is always going to inevitably want to give in, okay? You really need to become a team. You create an understanding at home that there are responsibilities that you need to complete, which are called non-preferred activities, before you can enjoy what you want. So you want to create this first, then. First you eat your dinner at the table, then you can watch 10 minutes of your show. You're not going to say to your child, here, eat your dinner while you're watching your show, because it's going to be great in the moment, but like a little later on, it's not going to be so great when that is not available, or you want to have a nice dinner without technology. It's difficult. Okay? You really want to find those items that are highly motivated. There are very few kids who are motivated by nothing, and that's a difficult situation. That's when you call us for sure. But whatever they're motivated by, they have to be motivated by what you're giving them, whether it's time with mom. You get 10 minutes of time with me and you can lay in bed with me. You get to go out for ice cream. You get to watch your tablet for the 5 minutes. Do not give your children technology unless they're earning it, because you're just handing them something for free. You don't want to hand them anything for free. Life isn't free. When you're an adult, you have to do your job and you get paid. You know, so there is this understanding in the adult life that when you complete something that you don't necessarily want to complete, a day at work, then you can do whatever you want. When they are bargaining, tantruming, just walk away. Now listen, children don't care if it's negative or positive. They don't. They just want your attention. So they are going to throw a fit to get your attention. They know how to work you. At 6 months old, a child starts behaviors on you. So at 6 months old, they know if I cry, I get something, okay? That's how young this behavior starts. So when you're in that negative, ignoring that negative, okay? When I talk about that, I'm not just talking about words. I'm talking eye contact. Do not make eye contact with them. If you're out in public and you need to move them from the store, you know, the ground or wherever they're tantruming, to the car, that's fine, but don't give them attention. You say no words. You do not give them eye contact. You do not say anything, which is very difficult. And then if you're holding their hand, you're not going to hold their hand all nice. You're going to hold their wrist, because that is showing them that this is not an appropriate behavior, and this is not something that we reward behaviors for, okay? We're going to start on some self-care. So I'm going to give you some age ranges, and I don't want you to panic when you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't know a child could get dressed at that age, because we're all where we're at right now. Wherever you're at right now, I want you to take this information and I want you to start there, and I want you to move through the developmental stages of, say, dressing and eating and all of those things, because wherever you are, you are. You don't need to feel bad. You just need to move forward with those, okay? So it's really important for kids to be completing activities through the developmental levels on time, okay? There's a big chart, and it tells you when you're supposed to do everything. When you look at that, you say to yourself, they are going to get dressed because it's giving them more fine motor strength. It's giving them bilateral coordination. They're using two hands at once. They're doing all sorts of things when they're doing these self-care skills, so it's really important that they actually do these. When you're looking at the developmental of a child at the age of 3, they have the capacity to get dressed independently, brush their teeth with like just a setup, standby assist, use utensils, and complete some fasteners. And I say, how do I get my kid to do this? Because right now they're not doing a lot. Some kids are just more motivated to be independent, and others need those rewards to pass through that. So we're going to start at the 6 to 9 month level only because I want you to see the progression of the steps, so that if your child is, say, even in their 6 to 9 months and they're not doing something, but they're 5, you can still do those skills. You just want to teach the skill. So this is the developmental milestones of self-care skills. So 6 to 9 months, brings hands to mouth, pats the side of a bottle, places one or more hand on the bottle when being fed. Not that they're holding the bottle, but that they're just knowing that this bottle has food in it and it's going into their mouths. Using tongue to move food around in the mouth, munches solid foods, bites, chews toys. So this is kind of that place where they're chewing toys, they may be licking things, smelling. But when you get past that and you get to that 12-month level, if they have not stopped that, that's when you say, okay, they've got some sensory stuff going on. And they should be able to feed themselves a cracker and hold their own bottle by that 6 to 9 months, okay? When we're in that 6 to 9 months, we're looking at rolling both ways, sitting up independently, starting to kind of, get in that crawling position. 9 to 12 months, they're biting food voluntarily. They're chewing with coordinated movements. They drink from an open cup held by an adult. So think about that. 9 to 12 months, they are supposed to be able to have enough control in their mouth to control the liquids coming in when the adult is holding that cup. I know it seems young, but that's their capability, okay? Finger feeds independently. You want to do very tiny foods so they can only pick up with their 2 fingers, called a pincer grasp. It's a very important skill moving forward. When you first see them, they'll take Cheerios and it's called raking. They pull everything in with their fingers, but eventually they get a pincer grasp. And you can do that with like Cheerios and things like that. Just give them one at a time so they don't tend to rake that. All right, 12 to 18 months. We are scooping with a spoon. We are helping to dress and undress, okay? Basically, like if you're putting a shirt on, you put it over their head. They put their arms through the holes, okay? You put their pants through their feet. They pull up the pants. That's kind of that 12 to 18 months. They're able to hold their own cup. They drink from it, but there's spillage. So they have a little bit of that difficulty with more of the hand control. They are able to scoop rice or another substance from one container, put it into another one. Those are showing me that they've got hand control. They're showing me that they can scoop, and typically they go across that midline, okay? Crossing that midline is so important, okay? What is it important for? The right and left brain have 2 sides, and they have to have a conversation back and forth. The way that those conversations start in life is reaching across this way for this thing and reaching across. So if you're right here and you're handing me a snack, okay, and you see your child grabbing it with the same side, I want you to just gently help them to go across their body. When they go across that body, those are the underlying skills for reading, writing, and math. They start that young. And that's those synapses that are created so that the brain can go back and forth, okay? Feeding 18 to 36 months, so we're almost into about 3 years now. Feeding with a spoon independently, okay? Attempts to brush their teeth with setup. Maybe they need a little help, but they're getting to that point. Independently undressing, so being able to take all of their clothes off. Clothes and shoes at this point doesn't matter if they're backwards, sideways, that doesn't matter at this point. So when you're doing dressing up to this point, you don't necessarily care if they're backwards, sideways, and different feet. They get dressed with minimal help. So like maybe they put the shirt on and they get one arm in, but something gets stuck on that other arm. They eat with a fork. They pour water from one container to the other. They unsnap. So just pulling them apart. They unbutton 1-inch buttons. That's about this big, a little bigger than a quarter. They're able to pull zippers up and down. So they're able to use that pincer grasp and really hold on hard enough to pull up and down. They don't seat the zipper at this point, and they should be able to latch a gate. So one of the things I tell people, have your child, when you have time, climb into the car. Try to put in their arms into that, those straps for that car seat. Attempt to push the car seat together, okay? Getting them independence anywhere you can is developing fine motor, visual perceptual, bilateral coordination, things like that. Okay, so when you have a 3-year-old, milestone. So if you're not at this point, don't worry, it's okay. You just need to get to this point by following through the developmental stages that we're bringing here. So they should be able to drink from a cup with minimal spillage, dress and undress with standby assist, able to brush teeth with setup, finger feeds using the pincer grasp, scoops with a spoon, stabs with a fork, scoops from one container to the other, pours from one container to the other, and lets you know they need to use the bathroom somehow, okay? We're gonna go into some potty training in a little while, but that's a whole nother ball game. I also would say when your child can already do certain skills, unbuttoning and buttoning that 1-inch button, go to the one down. Maybe you're wearing a jacket and you say, can you help me with my button or snap? Create times when you're not stressed out and you're already putting on your jacket and things like that to have them help you. Kids love to help. They really do. Okay. So we're going into the 4-year-old kind of age at this point, 3.5 to 5. This is when you should really be starting to make sure they're putting on clothes with a front to back orientation. Shoes should go on the correct feet. They should start doing the seating of that zipper. So really, it's probably best to start those kind of activities in front of them on a table just so they can really visually see everything, because looking down, it's like a different visual field. They should be able to close snaps. Now, if you haven't been doing these fine motor things all along, shutting a snap does require a lot of fine motor strength and dexterity. So they may not be able to do that at this point. Okay, when you have a child who's having difficulty, you want to find fine motor activities that increase that finger strength. They now are assisting in the bathtub with washing, drying. They can put the brush to their hair. They might not necessarily be able to brush their hair appropriately. They're able to wipe their mouth and dry their hands independently, wipe their nose when prompted. A lot of those kids still have a difficult time noticing if something's on their face. They have like chocolate all over and, they think it's totally fine. And they also, at this point, should be going to the toilet independently if they know where it is. So if you're at your house, they should be able to go to the bathroom and come back by that 48 months. Okay, so self-care. By 5 years old, they should be doing these things. Now, again, if you are not doing them, follow that developmental cycle. Make sure they can do each skill before getting to this 5 years. Preparing simple foods for eating, okay? That might sound crazy, 5-year-old, but it's true. Whether it's cutting up fruit with, obviously, adults standing by because of the knife, spreading jelly onto a piece of toast, things like that. Putting something in the microwave and pushing the 30-second button. We also want to kind of notice if our kids are pocketing food or stuffing their mouths. So pocketing would be like later on, like an hour or two later, you realize like they had kept food kind of in the teeth, in between the teeth and the cheek. That is actually sensory input. It gives you proprioceptive input inside your cheek. So that is telling you that there's some difficulty with that sensory processing. The other thing that kids love to do is to stuff their mouths. So taking a lot of food, kind of stuffing it. And there's a really interesting thing that happens. When you stuff your mouth and you kind of almost choke on it, you get proprioceptive input into your throat, and it gives them the input they're looking for. But it's dangerous, obviously, for choking and things like that. But that's telling you that they have difficulty regulating because they're doing those types of things. So stuffing your mouth or pocketing food. At 5, they should be able to open containers, drink from a straw, drink from a water fountain, even though we don't typically do that anymore. Carrying an open container without spilling, so bringing you a drink. Oh, honey, could you bring me some water? That's a simple meal they can make. They can bring you over a drink. Washes their body in the bath, assists with hair washing, combs hair, tears the toilet paper, and we're kind of at that wiping phase now. So obviously we need a little assistance. A lot of times boys need a little more assistance long term with the wiping, but we should be pretty independent, enough to be able to go to school. And then we've got our big 6-year-olds, okay? We're starting to use the knife to spread and cut. We're turning clothes outside in or inside out, depending on how they come out of the laundry. They should be able to figure that out. Now, that takes a lot of spatial awareness, directionality, and patience. Okay, so if your kid is going from 0 to 100 and they can't put that shirt on because of that frustration tolerance, that's when you need to do those sensory strategies. Say, you know what? Let's put the shirt down. Let's go down and do like 10 sit-ups and some wall push-ups, and then let's try again, okay? It's really important to understand your own frustration tolerance as well, because sometimes us as adults never really learned the deep breaths and those sensory processing pieces as we were kids. So we're kind of learning them as our kids do. So sometimes we need to take ourselves out of the equation. If that means redirecting your child to do something else for a minute and then going back to the skill, I would suggest that. Okay, so here we are on brushing teeth and bathing. And now we're going to kind of go through, like, what do you do when this isn't working out? Which is pretty typical. Most kids or families have difficulty doing all of these self-care skills. A lot of us are in a rush. You know, we have time constraints, so it makes it a little bit more frustrating for both us and the kids. But here's some tips for you. If your child is sensitive to brushing teeth or bathing, it is important to give sensor input. So, for instance, we've talked about wheelbarrow walks and bear walks and frog jumps. If you know your child does not like to get their head wet or has a difficult time in the bath, typically I'd create a routine. Okay, we're going to frog jump, we're going to bear walk, and then we're going to wheelbarrow all the way into the bathroom. That's giving us vestibular input. That's giving us proprioceptive input. When we get those proprioceptive input, we are hitting on dopamine in the brain, and we are alerting the serotonin to release so that we can be at a calmer state. So if we are up here or 2 feet at the edge of that cliff, okay, we can back ourselves up to 10 feet beyond the edge of the cliff with those exercises so that the person has longer to go before they have the tantrum, okay? When you go into the bathroom and you find that your child is still a little bit dysregulated, take that dry towel on their dry body and just rub it as firmly as you can, the head, the back, the legs, especially the head. So if their head is sensitive, when you brush it, it hurts. Or if their face is sensitive, when they get water on it, they freak out. You want to do these things prior to the bath time because that you know you've helped their nervous system get to a point where they can tolerate it, okay? So desensitizing that skin is taking the parasympathetic nervous system and it's calming it. So remember, the head, the spine, the neck, that is the central nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is all of the nerve endings in your entire body. So the nervous system gives out impulses, okay, and then those impulses are felt throughout your body. So when you're having difficulty with bathing or teeth brushing, dressing, your nervous system is on high alert. It feels like the nerve endings have been tattered. So by taking that towel and firmly brushing that, it helps to give signals to the parasympathetic nervous system so that they can calm down, so that when you get in the bath, there's not such trauma. To support the brushing teeth regimen, a lot of kids don't love toothbrushes in their mouth. I would say in general, if your child does not want it in at all, I would get an electric toothbrush and allow them to put it up to their cheek, allow them to put it into their mouth. I would do that one time almost on every hour until they start to get used to the input. Distract with songs. There's a lot of videos on YouTube. We call them social story videos. Say I want my child to learn how to brush their teeth. I go onto YouTube, I say, social story for toothbrushing. You will find a video that has another child or a cartoon character, and what will happen is they will watch that, and then they will get it from information from someone else. You know how like your parent tells you something, and you're like, ugh, and then someone else tells you, you're like, okay, no problem, I'll do it. It's kind of like that, taking yourself out of the equation again, putting it onto those social story videos. I would use in general a visual timer. If someone has a difficult time in the bath time or brushing their teeth, you're like, okay, just do this for 30 seconds. Here's your 30-second timer. You can make it through anything for 30 seconds, okay? So utilizing those kind of visuals is great. Like I said before, make sure that that pressure is firm, because if you do like a tickly motion with that towel, the parasympathetic nervous system will go, ah! And it will just freak out. It's like being tickled. If anyone doesn't like to be tickled, they understand what a parasympathetic nervous system feels like when it's not happy. Okay. I think we might have our second video.
This way. Maybe I can't do it. This
No, I know you can, bud.
This way.
Cece's helping you.
Do it this way.
Yep.
This way. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Okay, Cece, help him get that last arm in.
Yes, Amen. Okay, I will. Time to go. Time to go, little army. Little army? Yeah, this guy you in the army. There you go. There you go. No, let me do it.
You almost got it.
No, let me do it. I'm
Oh my gosh. Cece, look.
No.
He's straightening up his collar. Cece, good job helping him.
So funny. I love that video. So when you first watch the video, when he's struggling with that, task, he's got his tongue, out. You'll see that happen a lot. When you're cutting, you're like, when a child is getting a new skill for the first time, the rest of the body gets what's called motor overflow. The rest of your body is trying to help you get that task done, okay? He had his sister rooting for him. He said, maybe I just can't do it. He wanted to give up right away, but his dad said, nope, you can do this. They're practicing the skill in a non-stressful time. They're not going anywhere. They're just doing it, which is why I think bedtime is the best time to teach dressing. You just start about a half hour earlier, and then you have plenty of time to practice that skill, okay? When he gets that done, do you see the look on his face? He is so happy. He is so proud of him. He just accomplished something, and he has gotten some new confidence. That is what we want our kids to have, is that self-confidence. I can do it. So dressing. I want to talk about backward chaining for a minute. So, for instance, if you are a parent and you're trying to teach your child how to put their sock on, but they're getting stuck on their toes, they can't get it over their heel, you know, the whole thing. It's just a hot mess. So I'm going to show you what's called backward chaining, okay? So if I was teaching my child right now to put their sock on, I would not start it and just say, here's a sock, you know, because it's really hard to get over those toes and then again over the heel. So when you do this, see if I can balance, you want to put it over their feet, okay? You want to put it so that it's right here, okay? Hold on, right there, okay? Backward chaining is you're giving them the confidence. Oh, put your sock on. Oh my gosh, I did it. Okay? You want them to be successful from the beginning to the end. So even though they did it maybe an inch, maybe tomorrow they're going to do 1.5 inches, 2 inches, but you want to create situations with all of this self-care that they just need to do a little bit. Maybe you need to brush their teeth for the first minute, and you give their toothbrush, and it's like, your turn, and they just do it. Even if they get the toothbrush in your mouth, that is a step in the right direction. That is something that you would want to praise, okay? When you're taking off that sock, you know, typically they have a hard time getting it over the heel, okay? So I typically get it to this widest part of your foot, and I put it there, and then they just pull it off easy. But every time, you're going to increase the amount that they're doing. But they don't have that frustration as much because that you're helping them 75%, and then 70%, and a little bit less each time, and eventually they do it independently, okay? Again, first do this and then do something else. You know, they want to do what they want to do. I want you to tell them, first you put on your sock, and then you get to watch 5 minutes of this. Then you get your cupcake, things like that. Again, watch those videos. Social story, getting dressed. Tells the child why they're getting dressed a lot of times. Shows them the person being excited for that independence, okay? Use the same routine or strategy every time. Typically, I take a shirt, okay? I lay it on the bed or on a surface. The front is down. I have them put their arms in and through. It comes over their head. Every time they do that, they understand that routine, and then eventually they will change it to be more appropriate. We had last time behavior charts. So on the top was one rectangle, and then there was about 20 squares, and then there's a rectangle at the bottom. The top of the rectangle would say, whatever skill you're working on. So say socks is your thing. I put on my socks, okay? When you've gotten to the point where you've put on those socks, they have a reward at the bottom, okay? So you're saying, okay, we're going to work on putting socks. Every time you try your best to put on the sock, we're going to give you a sticker, okay? And that way they have something to keep focused. They stay focused on a goal because you keep something in front of their face that's going to keep them moving forward. If a skill is proving to be too difficult, okay, you need to back off, you need to start over, you need to take a break. Both of you are frustrated, okay? You just get the child dressed at that point. You'll revisit it in about a month. You need to give it a break so that they don't get immediately frustrated when they see clothes. It creates like a bad scenario when you start to do things and try to push through that frustration tolerance too hard. Okay. Feeding. I don't know about you, but one of my least favorite things to do as a parent is feed my children. I feel like you make all this food and they eat like one bite and then they're up. When you're very little, you want to use those tiny pieces to create that pincer grasp. You want to really allow time to practice with the finger feeding, use the spoon, fork, knife, cup. Maybe you do it at the mealtime. Maybe you have a little center and you have like rice or beans and things like that, and you use forks and knives spoons, things like that in for play. Maybe you have them in their high chair or at the table, and you put pudding on the table, and they're just drawing shapes and making things with it. Playing with food desensitizes us to that texture, taste, and smell. Use a mirror, songs, games, watch other people eat. Do those social stories. Social story and eating at the table. That's a great one to put in. In general, we want to use a lot of colors and textures. I would say if you can start young and really just keep that going, it makes your life a lot easier long term. Most of us have gotten to the point where the kids ate anything when they were younger, but now they're getting a little bit more older and they're getting more aware of their environment, and they start being more and more picky, okay? When they start to get picky, okay, that's when we want to have as much color and texture at least on the table. It doesn't have to be on their plate, but we start with them on the table. If they're snackers, they want to go back to that table every 2 seconds, but they're playing with a toy going back and forth. You don't allow that. You say, sit at the table, you put a timer, even if it's 20 seconds. You have to sit at the table until you're done eating. When you're done eating, I will clean it up, put it away, and you will have, the next timer goes off, you will have that meal, okay? So if they have like one bite and then they're out of there, you have to time it. So you have to say, okay, breakfast is over, and put the food away. If you don't think they got enough food and that you really need to feed them again, wait about a half hour. But in general, you can wait an hour. Bring that food out, get them at the table, put the timer on, see how long they can stay. Hopefully it was at least 10 seconds longer than the last time. And then do the same thing over and over until you expand that meal time and they realize that the food's not going to be at the table if I keep going back and forth. They will still do that in their teenage years and adult if you don't change things. So like some things maybe doesn't bother you, but some things you want them to have as a long-term attribute. They can sit at the table. It's important to do because they don't necessarily get these skills just from learning from their peers. Oh, my favorite, picky eating. When your child is like refusing to eat, or when they're just eating crunchy foods, or they're just eating chips, or they're just eating crackers, or they just want gluten, things like that, I would say the rule of thumb is that if a child is craving one food particularly a lot, say gluten, they're not necessarily allergic to it, but their body is intolerant. Your body will crave whatever it is intolerant to, okay? So if I'm intolerant to dairy, that doesn't mean I'm lactose intolerant. It means that the lactose is not working well for my system. But how you know that is they crave it more and more and more, okay? Same thing with gluten. It's not like we have celiac disease, but if we're eating bread and crackers and chips only, our body is creating its own addiction to what it doesn't tolerate. Okay, so just kind of notice like the kids' food and what they're eating. Make sure there's like one from each food group, different colors, different textures. And you can kind of see if it's a sensory issue or just a behavior. Maybe they just don't like those foods. So when you have those children with that picky eating, refusing all of the foods, you start by having the food on the table, okay? They don't necessarily want it on their plate. They don't want it near them. Sometimes it has to start about 10 feet from them. But you're moving that food closer and closer until eventually it sits on the plate. So what your first goal is to say, okay, I want the food on the plate. You don't have to eat it. You don't have to touch it. But I at least want it on the plate, okay? So after they've had it on the plate for a while, okay, you're going to touch it with your finger. Then you're going to hold your finger in it. So we're chaining that forward, and we're adding on a different little skill, very tiny, but eventually they're going to touch it with their tongue. Eventually we have kids put it in their mouth and they spit it into a bowl. And then after that, we have to say, okay, chew one time and then spit it out. So it's just this like very slow process of eating and learning how to eat new foods, but it does take a long time. Just wait it out, be patient. We've had a couple kids who have been on bottles still at 5. And I think one reason why I do these trainings is because the pediatricians don't have time to tell you what to do. The schools aren't responsible for telling you what to do. So it's important to kind of, educate families on what to do. Okay. So, like I said, with those kids on the bottle at 5, I will tell you that it's taken us 2.5 years. The child I'm thinking of eating mashed potatoes, chicken, corn, carrots, everything. Okay, so it can be done. He'd never chewed food. He'd never sipped water, nothing, like nothing. And he's doing it. It did take a long time, like I said, but it does work if you do it. Add nutrition to smoothies. Have highly preferred foods. So if you touch your tongue to this first, you can have your sip of your favorite chocolate milk. First, you have to take a bite of this, then you can have this. So typically, I have a couple different plates, maybe a non-preferred food, a kind of preferred, and a very preferred. So we kind of use those as first then. Playing with food, like I said, it helps desensitize. Okay, potty training. Oh, it's so fun to potty train, isn't it? Well, one of the things that I will say is there's a lot of potty training methods. I would just pick one and go with it. If your child has tactile defensiveness, or they have a difficulty with that other stuff, brushing their hair, water in their face, a lot of times they will have difficulty with potty training. Potty training, the area that you have for potty training has the parasympathetic nervous system in it. If your nervous system is dysregulated, you may not be feeling that you have to go to the bathroom. You may not be feeling if you're wet or dirty. One of the strategies that we do, which we will teach you at some point, is the Wilbarger protocol, also joint compressions. Those regulate the parasympathetic nervous system so that the potty training is in a place where they can at least feel and have to go to the bathroom, okay? If a child tells you like they have a wet diaper, obviously they're ready for that, if they can undress themselves, at least if they can pull down their pants, get them on a schedule. If you decide to start potty training, it's like all in. I mean, it's like, okay, here we go. Every 45 minutes, we're going to go to the bathroom, and if you pee or go to the bathroom, you get an M&M, okay? When they are refusing to use the restroom completely, there's a lot of times there's a control issue going on. It's very difficult for some kids to release and let that go. So we have to look online and look at those social stories again. YouTube, social story and potty training. They will watch these videos. It will help them to understand. It will help them to understand why. Sometimes they have videos of what's going on in your body and what happens if you don't go to the bathroom. Obviously, daytime happens before nighttime. And like I said, modalities that can regulate that parasympathetic nervous system are joint compressions and the Wilbarger protocol. So if we have time, we'll do it today. If not, we will do that next session next Monday night. Sometimes for me, when I was doing it, there's a couple different ideas of thinking. So we had our children go just for that first couple years to Montessori school. They have a premise that there is a place where potty training is really easy around 18 months. You have about a month to get it in. And you basically, once you pass that 18 months, you go up to about 3 years old, because what happens is their parasympathetic nervous system, their central nervous system gets more aware, and so do they. So they want to hold on to their stuff. So they don't want to go. So if you can catch it at that 18 months, sometimes it works out really well. But it's obviously not for everybody. Okay, so time to get a baseline. So what you want to do, no matter if your kid's 12 or 15, you want to look through this list. Can they make meals? Can they, function and operate things? Are they getting dressed independently? Can they do fasteners of all types? If your child is not completing the skills for their age level, just start where they left off, okay? So I have this developmental scale that goes birth through, say 22. So we kind of use that as a guideline. I would say that it's time to get help if you're striking out, you're not seeing progress within, you've tried 3 different ways. I would say get help. I would ask your pediatrician. Occupational therapy is an option. Typically, schools don't necessarily help you with this, but there are preschools that will kind of be a teammate and assist you with those kinds of things. Sometimes people do the weekend where typically they do it in more of the summer months. They just don't wear clothes for the whole entire weekend. They don't leave the house, and they work through all of the accidents and such and get them through potty training within like 3 days. And it does work. It just takes a lot of dedication. So yeah, ask the preschool or the babysitter for help. Sometimes if it's not mom or dad, they tend to be more willing to do so. The next step after these self-care skills are completed is chores. Kids love doing chores. Don't be afraid to start your kid on chores at 3, at 2. Next time when we come, I will have some other diagrams of things that I do with my children when they were young, and now they're 11 and 13, and it's still working. So those charts that I gave you last week, okay, you could legitimately use those from, 1 year old or 6 months through the teenage years. You change it a little bit, like for instance, the chart that we had, you put the activity on the top. Obviously, you can change that activity to be anything you want. The reward would change. So at one point, it would be stickers, okay? At one point, it would be like the whole thing you got to do, and then you get ice cream with mom. Then I started with pennies. So each spot got a penny. Then I did nickels. Then I did dimes, quarters, and dollars. So at this point in my house, we do not buy our children anything unless it's a necessity or a holiday. We say, okay, look at your circle chart. If you have the money, you can buy it. Each circle's $1 every time you do something. So we say, okay, make a meal, it's $1. It just helps you out as parents to create this kind of system, because then you feel like you have more help in the house. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you got something out of it. Even if you just leave here with one thing, I'll be happy. We just want to say thank you to the Rhode Island Prevention Coalition. They put this on, and they did a really nice job. And I just want to tell you thank you for being here. I will be out, as well as Tayla Hannigan, in the lobby, and we can answer any questions from last time or this time. And then we will see you again next Monday. Thank you.